It's good to have you join us as we review stories making headlines on our national dailies. It's Off the Press. I am Mary-Ann Okon. And to look at these newspapers this morning, I have joining me Tubosun Akeju. He's a reputation manager, and of course he's going to be commenting on some of the stories making headlines. We'll start with the Vanguard newspaper. Top story here says, Rowdy session in Senate over elections. That's the biggest story. Apparently, it has a lower rider which says senators differ on plans to probe militarization of polls as House moves to probe inconclusive elections by INEC. Again, he says development portends danger for democracy. And still in the Vanguard newspaper, top right corner, federal government bans use of Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes and 9 planes in Nigeria. Apparently, government's directive does not affect us, says Air Peace. Again, on the top left of the paper, second term, Buhari must work smarter, not harder, says Olu Fashion. And of course, discourse, the new identity politics in Lagos by Pat Utomi. And then the other story, which still breaks my heart, 9 die and scores injured in Lagos school building collapse. It's good to have you in the studio, Tubosun.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with the not so great news of the building collapse. If you were watching the news, you saw a correspondent who was describing what exactly happened.
It's such a sad one. You know, the news yesterday was very, very heartbreaking, and I think we should immediately start to learn from this. When you look at the timeline of building collapse in Lagos, I think it's very instructive for the authorities to go in and start to do a lot of integrity tests on these buildings. No parents, nobody should have to cry over the death of, you know, the loved one, and something very avoidable.
But when you say we need to start learning, I mean, come on, look at what, I mean, we still haven't the corona report from the church. Remember that church building collapse? I mean, and we shouldn't wait for this to happen for us to learn. Who gives out the building permit? Who inspects these buildings?
That's what I'm saying.
Who does all of that?
You know, that's what I'm saying. That I mean, my learning in context there is learning and doing. You know, because we already know some of these buildings were built with the foundation of a bungalow, and then they've made modification on it, and then you have 2 buildings on it. We already, I mean, any reasonable contractor or anybody that is, you know, well informed about buildings in on this side of town will also know the type of soil we have here, you know. And this one was so obvious because in the news I read that someone actually resigned from that school last year because she was scared about the building. So the people around that place probably already know. And I think another thing we need to start doing, if you think something is fishy, just report it already and don't stop at reporting it. You know, let's start to be our brothers. It's very, very, very
This is an issue of being your brother's keeper. Maybe we need to start putting punitive measures in place. Maybe if 1-2 persons are sent to jail because of, you know, not doing what the law says about buildings, because of course there is a law that governs that sector. So definitely, maybe that should work.
I mean, that's something that must happen. But what the law probably doesn't provide for now, which is our, you know, our moral obligation, is to be our brother's keeper. And that means if I find a building that is cracking, if I find a building that I think there's a problem with it, I must report to the authorities. I must make a song and dance of that. So the teacher who resigned should next time not stop at resigning if you find something like that, but you must report it so that that building is marked for demolition. And by the time you put a lot of pressure on the authority, which is what usually works in Nigeria, put a lot of pressure on the authority, make a song and dance of it. Let's have civil society organizations stand up, you know, and start to do what they're supposed to do, and then I think we'll be more effective that way.
Well, it's still off the press. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at more papers, and of course we have an additional guest on the show. Stay with us. You're still watching Off the Press on Plus TV Africa, and well, we are looking at the issue of the collapsed building here in Lagos. Apparently 18 have been reportedly killed in that building, 41 injured, and well, it's a sad story, I must say. We were just talking about it with Tubosun, but we are being joined in the studio by Bolahon Salami. He's a tech consultant, but aside that, he does a lot of things. Hello, it's good to have you join us. So our next paper is The Nation newspaper. Top story here is obviously the injured children and, of course, the people who died. But let's look at the top rider. Federal government bans Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft operations, or your chief whip held for Olatoye's murder. And of course, this other part of the newspaper, top right, NCDMB rejects 1,494 expatriate quota. Buhari turns down oil spill bill. Gunmen kill DPO expectant officer. And of course, Awoni, others hit Tunisia on Monday. I'm sure, Bolahon, you want to quickly talk about this before we talk about 737?
Yes, the sad story about the collapse in Lagos Island. I think I looked at it from the point of poverty, because a lot of people live in that area and they see that we have these issues with these buildings, but they don't have a choice. Low income housing in Lagos State is basically non-existent. So what happened? We know these buildings are not up to code, but the government has to take a step-by-step approach to fixing the issue. So first things first, we need to identify the buildings that need to go down. We also need to find out what's going to be alternative options for those people that live in those buildings so that they can have housing, because people know that they're living in risky accommodation, but they just can't do anything about it because
they have
nowhere else to go. Also, there's also the issue of compliance. You know, when your house has been marked for demolition, when you're still living in it, I think you're also risking your life. Also, there's the responsibility of civic responsibility from the people who live in that area. You know there's a problem with the building, and you overlook it because you feel, oh, this is not my concern. But now it's happened. It's happened before. It's happened again. It's probably going to happen. You know, if we don't do anything about it, we're actually going to have more incidents of this happening, and it's just too sad. We can't continue to have this going on.
What about the responsibility of parents? I don't want to push too hard on this issue, but what about the responsibility of parents? Because I'm thinking as a parent, I'd never take my child to a school in that kind of building. Yes, poverty, like you said, is also an issue, but should your priority not be the safety of your child, your ward, whatever it is?
So there's a story about a father that couldn't pay school fees for a while, and then he finally was able to pay, and then the kids went to school, and 3 of them died. So poverty is still the issue. When you live in a low-income area where there's a lot of deprivation, there's nothing you can do about it. When you look at schools 3 miles from where you live, and just about every school, this school is actually a legal school in a legal building.
It was approved.
Yeah, but according to the governor yesterday, he said this school is illegal, so not meant to be in this building. But what's happening is that people that live in that area don't have options. You look around Lagos Island, almost every building that you see, just by looking at it, you don't have to be a civil engineer to look at it and say, there's a problem with this building. Some of them are leaning over, some of them there's so much going on. And rainy season is coming now. Strong winds, who knows what's going to happen. We don't even know what, triggered this linchpin that brought down this building. So we have to look at it comprehensively.
Really sad. Back to you, Tubosun. Tell us what you think about the 737 being grounded in Nigeria.
Well, I was not expecting only Nigeria to ground. I was actually expecting Boeing itself to ground all 73 MAX 8. Way back when I was still in school, I used to watch a lot of air crash investigations, and it's interesting because it can take a while to pin down the exact cost of those 2 flights that have gone down, which has put the MAX 8 on the line. But something that has come out quickly is the new feature in MAX 8, which is the anti-stalling system. Boeing has tried, in the spirit of sustainability, reducing fuel consumption, to build a system into MAX 8 that reduces fuel consumption of the engine maybe by 14%. And from the little I know about the aviation industry, the takeoff and landing is the most critical and, the most dangerous part of flying. Mm-hmm. But now it's preliminary investigation is showing that there's a problem with the new feature of Boeing 8, so it was a no-brainer to ground all the planes and then make sure that thing is fixed, because if the new thing you've added, I mean, if there's a problem and you isolate, one of the first thing you look at is what is the new thing that I've added to this thing that's causing a problem. Boeing has been there for over the years, so it was just a no-brainer. And fortunately, none of the Nigerian airlines fly MAX 8 at the moment, even though 2 of the operators have made orders for
MAX 8. But they haven't taken delivery.
Yeah, so the other thing is to say, hey, please, since it's takeoff
don't worry, just let's have our money back, or let's buy another one.
Or please fix this problem, and when it is satisfied that this problem has been fixed.
No, we don't want the planes.
I mean, we're going to be very realistic. They're not going to push that series off the shelf that easily. Concorde had to do that at some point.
Especially in Africa, you know how we are. We're scared.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you look at the DC-10, one of the most popular aircraft we have around, we have had a lot of issues with DC-10. Well, so what happens is that when there's an accident, there's an investigation that goes on, and then we try and isolate what the issue is, and then we roll out that fix. Sometimes it's a safety issue, sometimes it has to do with pilot training. In this case, I think the issue has been identified, even though the investigation in this particular crash is not concluded. But from the previous crash, they know what happened. And there's a switch that is meant to take the plane to manual so the pilots can handle whatever issue came up. But that didn't happen in this case. We don't know what's actually transpired in the cockpit. We will find out, but I'm happy that the Nigerian government has taken a step to actually ban the planes from coming in, because that puts pressure on Boeing to actually get this sorted out.
All right, let's move on to this day newspaper. There seems to be the same story in all the papers, of course, looking at the issue of the collapse. But on this day, their biggest story is the president revoking OML license. That's OML 11 license transfers operatorship to NNPC. In other words, NNPC is taking over the operatorship of OML 11 license. Of course, top on this day newspaper, court orders EcoBank to forfeit 22.5 billion naira over Airtel shares. And of course, Nigeria's air passenger traffic drops in 4 years. Let's go to the OML 11 license. I'll start with you, Bolahon.
I think there's Shell and Okon people have always been in opposite sides. It's happened.
Well, that's for a good reason.
For good reason, yes. And I think in this case, my only concern with this story is there going to be a contractual issue with the federal government and Shell? Because I know that the government is stepping in to say, okay, let's put a stop to this. Whatever is happening here, let's let NNPC handle the operations of this oil well for now while we deal with other issues. But I don't know how Shell is going to react to this. I think the jury's out on that. Let's wait and see.
What do you think?
Well, you see, the OML 11 issue and Shell issue in Ogoniland is a bit more complex than we actually think. But this particular thing, I don't think that there will be much legal issue, because Shell was actually trying to get another 20-year lease on that OML. What I'm a bit concerned about is moving it to NNPC, considering that the OML 11 is, is said to be a very juicy asset. And to say that does the upstream arm of NNPC, because I know that a few years ago they were trying to grow the capacity of the upstream which is the NPDC, to be able to handle big projects. Do they have the capacity? Number two thing is that I'm of the opinion that government has no business doing business. So once the regulator has a subsidiary that is in business, it's a bit uncomfortable. So I'm saying, why are you moving it to NPDC?
But that goes to buttress what you were saying. So there might just be an issue of sorts here, especially when it comes to managing and handling that particular.
I also suspect that whatever they're doing now is kind of a stopgap. To say, okay, pending when we have a foolproof plan on how to deal with this, can NNPC just step in and handle that?
I hope it doesn't double the issue, or
let's just
create a bigger issue.
I think the main challenge is that tensions are rising, and to stop that from happening and causing complete destruction in that area, I think
they're just taking our show. But I would have also opined that the asset is transferred to an indigenous company in the spirit of local content development.
Oh, and that is another problem. Which indigenous company would you rather?
I think a lot of Nigerian companies have built capacity up to the extent that they are now even exporting the skills that they've built in Nigeria. And I think that we will not have the shortage of the companies in Nigeria that can handle the OML. Like I said again, government doing a regulator arm of a regulator doing business, because I would expect that. So how is the OML license going to be paid? What's the funding that's going to be used?
That's why I also believe that this has to be a temporary measure, because I feel that the government they don't want to kick out Shell from there. I think they're just trying to deal with whatever issue is happening now before they actually renew.
More like mediation.
Exactly.
Let's move to the Punch newspaper quickly. Top story in the Punch: Buhari Ambode mourn as collapsed building kills peoples and others. I thought it was a bomb explosion, says a victim's father. Still in the Punch newspaper, as you can see, there are pictures of people, rescue efforts. I must commend the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency. They did a great job, and most of the people who live around there, they did a great job. All right, let's look at the bottom of this paper. Very interesting story here. Gunmen murder pregnant cop, DPO, and 2 others in Edo. INEC lacks power to withhold my certificate of return, says Okorocha. Family Ondo NSCDC disagree over suspect's death in their custody. And reps lament inconclusive polls, and Senate vows to probe INEC. Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, that's a great time to be INEC chairman, I guess. I'll start with you.
I like separation of power. I think that it's okay for reps to make an attempt to probe. What that does, if it's properly done, is it strengthens our system and our processes. If you look at the way this particular, election, was conducted, the first issue of postponing the election already put, a bit of pressure on the integrity of the process. And also the fact that, we're just coming into a partial digitalization of the process, as it has reduced the obvious rigging, but just like human beings, we'll find new ways to do it. So it's important to have an investigation that brings to light, the loopholes in our process, so that we can plug that loophole, and then we're gradually, having a more trusted electoral system. So I think it's a good move to do. I just sincerely hope that it will be done with sincerity, so that we don't heat up the polity unnecessarily.
Bolahon, would you like to speak on this?
I think we said it all. I was going to pick on the gunman attack in Edo State. I think Apuse, and I think the issue there is, I think it's post-election violence that's happened. I think they had some people arrested from the election, and it looks like a jailbreak. I think the issue here is, how do we secure even the people who are going to be securing us, because some of those positions are very vulnerable.
Yes, of course.
I think it's an issue that we need to address and make sure that doesn't happen again, so that at least we know that when we hold people responsible for their actions, we're not afraid of reprisal attacks.
All right, well, finally, let's just quickly look at the Sun newspaper. We don't have too much time. Top story here says, Lagos, sad day, 12 school kids killed in building collapse, leaving residents in sorrow and tears. Ambode orders probe building harbored schools, shops, and others, and Buhari mourns. Ethiopian Airlines air crash, federal government bans 737 MAX 8 planes. Aircraft won't be allowed into Nigerian airspace. Senate, presidency, APC senators zero in on Lawan. South is still interested in the post. And of course, the story of the gunman who killed the DPO and 3 policemen in Edo is also a big story. Well, we have looked at all of this. And of course, finally, agony in Anambra as 27 die in auto crashes. We're talking about plane crashes, and here, on the roads, that lots of people feel safer. The roads are also giving problems. So again, maybe we need to start having speed guns, Maybe, I'm just thinking, because, there are speed limits, but nobody really observes them.
I always say, I think the issue with overspeeding on our roads has to do with consequences. If you go to developed countries, people know, if you take away the camera and speed guns from development, people will still not speed, because they're now trained not to speed. You know that when you overspeed, you get £50 fine. You get it. So if you pay a hefty fine for overspeeding over and over again, you start to retrain yourself not to overspeed. I think it's important we have law enforcement in that area. to actually curb that.
But how do you stop over speeding if you do not have a speed limit, or you don't have a camera, you don't have a speed gun? I mean, the ban is going to challenge you and say, how was I speeding?
Unfortunately, in Nigeria, it's so strange. You have all these laws. Remember when the FRSC actually first came into existence on the highway? 100 kilometers per hour, you can't do fast. Like, when you see their cars on the road, you slow down because you know you're fast. But that doesn't happen anymore. People speed past FRSC now because you just feel like, oh well, we're used to them now. They're used to us. There's no consequence.
Oh wow.
Well, I agree with the punitive measures and the safety measures that needs to be put in place. But sometimes what is even more important is the structure on the road. You see, if you look at the constructed, the finished part of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you almost won't find accident there. So what happens? So a straight road that is smooth and standard is not as dangerous as a straight road that is smooth but has a pothole somewhere. So that's one thing that needs to be taken care of. So it's important for us to put all those measures there. But more importantly, please, can we not have those sudden potholes on the road? Can it be fixed? Can we have... It's not rocket science. We have Ministry of Works in every state. If there's a pothole on the road, please fix it. And let's stop losing people to all these avoidable safety issues that we have in the country.
Well, we want to say thank you to you, Bola Salami, tech consultant, and Tubosun Akeju, I beg your pardon, for speaking with us this morning on Off the Press. I am Mary-Ann Okon, thanking you for being part of the show this morning. Go grab yourself a newspaper and get abreast with all of the information that is in it. And that's all we can take today. We'll be back tomorrow with more news. Stay with us.